Hello. Welcome once again to another edition of Today's History, Upper Ohio Valley. I'm Bob Connors, your host, and we have a great program for you and an honorable guest, Congressman Bill Johnson.
Good morning, Bob.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
It's good to be here. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, my friend.
I'm thinking about our audience, and they never really get to know a lot about the people who run for Congress.
Sure.
Because of all the political things around. So I wonder if you take a few minutes and just tell us about Bill growing up and your background and getting to Congress.
Honored to do that. Bob, I was not born in the gilded halls of Washington, D.C. I was born and raised on a little two-wheel wagon rut mule farm. We farmed with mules up until I was about 13 years old. Every day was a survival day. I actually told that story once to a guy in Washington, D.C. during a presentation, and he said, "My gosh, that's silly. Why didn't somebody your age farming with mules, why didn't you use a tractor?" I said, "Well, we didn't have a tractor." He said, "Why didn't you borrow one?" I said, "You don't understand. Where I came from, we had to borrow the stinking mule." My granddad and I would walk for 2 miles with 2 5-gallon buckets of corn to borrow the mule from a neighboring farmer, and that's what we used to till the ground and plant the crops on that little two-wheel wagon rut mule farm. We had no indoor plumbing. We cooked and heated on 2 big black pot-bellied stoves. Every day was a survival day, and that's where I learned the values of hard work and honesty and sacrifice, and I think that's what motivated me after high school to join the United States Air Force. Never imagined that I would spend 27 years in the Air Force, but I did. Retired in 1999 as a lieutenant colonel. And after that, started my own businesses, had some information technology consulting companies, and then ended up in Northeast Ohio working as the Chief Information Officer for a global manufacturing company, when I got very concerned about the direction that our country was going, concerned about the debt that we were accumulating, concerned about the liberal ideologies that were sinking its teeth into our culture, and so I decided to run, and in 2010 I did, and we won, and I would have never imagined that I would be doing today what I'm doing, representing the hardworking people of eastern and southeastern Ohio.
Well, you just walked me right into my next question. The other thing I think that people may not understand is your daily function as a congressman. What are you doing with your time when you work? What do you spend your day? I know there's some of it's with legislation, but I'm sure there are other things you have to do.
Sure.
So you could kind of explain the day in Bill Johnson, the congressman's life?
Absolutely. Well, there's 2 sides to the job. One side is in Washington, D.C., and those days are packed with committee hearings. I sit on the Energy and Commerce Committee. It is the largest, longest serving committee in the U.S. House of Representatives with the biggest, largest jurisdiction. We cover everything from health care to energy, to telecommunications. We have oversight of many of the executive agencies like Health and Human Services, the EPA, the Department of Energy, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, all of those. And so it is a very, very busy time. That's the legislative process, introducing legislation, supporting legislation, debating legislation that ultimately winds up on the president's desk to hopefully put us on the right track and move us in the right direction. But here in Ohio, when I am in my district, and it's about 3/4 of the time, my day starts very, very early. You can't do this job sitting behind a desk. People ask me all the time, "Well, I was by your office, but you're never there." No, I'm never in an office. I'm out where the people are that I represent. So I'm either meeting people in little cafes here along the river, meeting at businesses, touring businesses, understanding the needs and concerns of the people that I represent, going to veterans halls like the American Legion and places like that, so that I meet up front and personal with the people that I represent, so that I can better be informed about what kind of legislation will meet their needs.
Yeah, and you have a big district, mileage-wise.
Yeah.
You have to be on the road. Maybe you can explain how large this district is, a 6th district for Ohio.
You bet. Well, the current district, the current 6th district, is the longest district east of the Mississippi. It's shaped loosely like a banana. It goes from just outside of Cleveland to just outside of Cincinnati, all along the Ohio River. It's 18 counties, for the most part, lined up end to end like a chain. And so, yeah, it takes about 6.5 hours to drive from one end of the district to the other. I can drive from my home in Marietta to Washington, D.C. faster than I can drive from one end of my district to the other.
That's pretty amazing.
It's a big district. About 720,000 people in the current district. The new district, after November's elections, when Congress is sworn in January, the 6th district will have roughly 800,000 people.
Wow, so you got to bump up there and all
Bigger.
that mileage and
Right.
more cafes to go to.
That's right, a lot more cafes.
Another thing I want to get to is just what's the biggest concern you're finding out there with people for this campaign, this election cycle? What
Sure.
are you running into?
The biggest concern that I get is inflation. You know, just a few short years ago, Bob, we had the best economy that we'd had in 5 decades, 50 years. We had the lowest unemployment, we had the lowest taxes, we had the highest wage growth, we had the highest stock market growth. We were energy independent for the first time in 70 years. In just a little over a year, that has all tumbled. Today, we are looking at 41-year high spikes in inflation. 8.6 in September is what the number was. And Americans here are struggling. The price of gas has doubled at the pump. The cost of energy. I read an article just this morning. This winter, Americans are going to be paying 28% more than they paid last year for the cost to heat their homes and cook their food. Americans in this region of the country that make just over $35,000 a year on the average, they can't afford to have a whole month's worth of their pay taken away from them. But that's where we are. So inflation is a big, big deal. The cost of gas, the cost of groceries, the cost of everything. Businesses are experiencing it. Their supply chain, the cost for raw materials. So everybody is having to tighten their belt in a very bad way. People are having to determine, do I put gas in the car or do I put food on the table?
That's
do I
amazing.
put gas in the car or so I can get back and forth to work, or do I pay the electric bill? Those are not the kind of decisions that you want Americans to have to make.
No, it's not. I recently had a friend of mine tell me that she went to get gas, and as the pump ticked it up to $50, she came to a shocking revelation for her, and that is she couldn't afford to fill up her car.
Yeah.
It's the first time she couldn't afford to fill up the car.
That's right.
That's pretty shocking.
That's right. People are amassing credit card debt like crazy because they're going into debt trying to make ends meet. When you have to choose between putting gas in your car and putting clothes on the kids to go to school or to get them food, we both know what's going to happen. You're going to use a credit card if you have to, but it doesn't have to be like this. This decline in our economy and the skyrocketing inflation is coming directly from the Biden administration's failed policies.
Yeah, there's no question about that we have a real situation here coming into this election.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see people will have their say within about 3 weeks.
They will have their say on November 8th.
Let me move to another subject here, and that is your campaign.
Sure.
What's going on inside your campaign at this time? Anything good, bad, problems?
Well,
minus?
everything is going good. You know, we never take anything for granted. I never take the vote of the people that I represent for granted. So We are out and about in our district every single day, meeting with people, talking with people, understanding and asking them the question that you just asked me. What is your biggest concern? Most say inflation. Some have a concern about the skyrocketing crime. Others are also concerned about border security and the number of illegal immigrants and crime and human traffickers and drugs that are flooding across our border like water through a sieve. And so we spend a lot of time in my campaign out talking with people. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's what we're doing.
Well, you just walked me into another one. And that is the people crossing the border. We have 5 million crossing so far, probably more. So what is your take on that border situation from your view, widespread across, including the drugs coming in, the people, everything? What's your take on that?
Look, under the previous administration, we had border security like we had not seen in decades. The reason for that was we were building the border wall. President Trump had worked out an arrangement with Mexico that when asylum seekers tried to come here, they had to remain in Mexico until their court dates came up to adjudicate whether or not they were really qualified to seek asylum in America, because most people that file for asylum don't really meet the criteria for asylum here. We're a nation of immigrants. Most of us, unless we're Native Americans, we came from an immigrant lineage in our families, but they came here the right way. The borders that are open today, like I said earlier, water through a sieve. And the main reason for that is because the Biden administration stopped building the border wall on day one, okay? And they implemented what's called a catch and release program, which means if you catch an illegal immigrant trying to get across the border, you can't send them back to where they came from. You got to release them into the United States until their court date comes up. And do you know how many of those immigrants actually show up for their court dates?
How many?
A very small percentage. Only about 40% of them. Wow. Most of them just meld into American society and disappear. And they basically work on the lam for the rest of their lives. And that's not a good thing to do. And he also eliminated or stopped the agreement on asylum seekers that we had with Mexico. So it's another situation, just like with our economy. The border security crisis is a wound that is self-inflicted by the Biden administration.
There's no question about it. Now, another part of that same discussion is the crime and drugs coming across the border. Do you have some comments on that?
Absolutely. We've seen fentanyl. Where's the fentanyl coming from? Fentanyl is a deadly drug. A micro portion can kill thousands and thousands of people. And it's coming from China. It's being shipped by the Chinese into countries in Central and South America. Those criminals are coming up through Mexico with that fentanyl, and they're trying to bring it across the border. Our border agents have seized an unimaginable amount of deadly fentanyl trying to be smuggled across our border. And what does it do when it gets here? One microspeck can kill a person. We had 4 Ohio State students earlier this year that took what they thought was a medication that would enable them to study for their exams. Yeah. Deadly combination laced with fentanyl. And it's happening all over the country.
So they're essentially poisoning this country.
Oh, yeah.
It's poison. It's no other way to describe it.
It is a deadly poison that will kill you. I have an 18-year-old son at Youngstown State University, and my wife and I, there's not a week that goes by that we don't remind him, do not take a medication that does not come from a doctor and your own prescription with your name on it. Yeah. Don't take an aspirin. Don't take any kind of medication from any of your friends. They probably wouldn't do it to hurt you. They may not even know that medication that they have, that they got from somebody else, could be laced with a deadly amount of fentanyl.
Yeah, that's pretty frightening. I think a lot of the general public, they don't spend, and the media does not spend enough time on that side of what's going on that border.
That's right.
And in addition to the poison coming in, there are women getting raped, little girls being raped.
That's right.
Murdered, people dying along that border who are trying to get here, killed by cartel and by the environment. That doesn't get discussed. It only gets discussed about, oh, these people just need a job, and they just...
I have visited the border myself. The last time I was there, I witnessed myself a human trafficking situation unfolding. The head of the Border Patrol there that day pulled me aside and said, "Take a look. You see," they said, "You see these two young boys over here in this holding area. We are waiting to find out, but we're pretty sure that the people that brought them here, posing to be their parents, aren't really their parents." And as it turned out, they were not. Their parents had sold two siblings, one about 4 years old, the other about 10 years old, sold them to another couple from another country to pose as their parents, and they rooted it out. So now these parents, or this couple, is going to be charged with human trafficking. Now they've got to find the parents that had come through earlier, and they've got to find them wherever they are, because they too are going to be charged with human trafficking when they locate them. But it's going to be these kids that are caught in the midst of all of that. It's tragic.
So it sounds like the parents sold the kids to these people so they can get in.
Right.
And then later they would return
Try
the
to
kids
reunite.
back to the
Yeah,
kids.
right.
Parents. That's just a disgusting thing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And what you said about the young women, you know, we are concerned about the rights of women here in America, and no country does a better job than our country does. But coming across our border, these drug cartels, these young women that come up and try to get across our border illegally, handled by these cartel members, they are raping and abusing these women in unbelievable numbers. It's tragic.
It is tragic. So hopefully we can get something done with that one too.
Yeah.
But speaking about the border, ICE spends $90 million annually for smartphones to give these people coming across the border illegally. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, how much? What else can we spend our tax dollars on, right? You know, that takes me back to the days under President Obama. They called them Obama phones, if you recall, where they were giving out free telephones at taxpayers' expense. You, I, the hardworking people of eastern and southeastern Ohio, paying for telephones for people that either won't purchase them or can't afford to purchase them because they won't get up and go to work.
Yeah.
It's another incentive to not go work.
It is. And who pays the phone bill?
We do. The
That's
federal
right.
government does.
I think that's
The
on
federal
top of the
government
90
does.
million.
Sure.
Now that's stunning to me that we're doing this stuff. But we're going to switch gears a little bit, Congressman. China. The government of China has at least 54 police service stations worldwide that they've placed in different countries, and they have one in New York City, in this country, on this soil, a police organization. What are your comments on that?
Well, you know, I think the Chinese are doing everything that they can to overtake the United States as global superpower. I don't know, Bob, if you've ever read the book, The 100-Year Marathon by Mark Pillsbury. It's a shocking book. It will keep you awake at night. In 1949, the Chinese made like a 36-element charter to overtake the United States as the world's dominant global superpower. They have accomplished nearly everything that they set out to do. And by 2049, which is only 17 years from now,
Yeah.
they will have accomplished everything that they set out to accomplish except for one thing. They never expected to engage and encounter a president like Donald Trump. Donald Trump put them on their heels, but the Biden administration, I mean, we know that we've got real concerns about the Biden family's relationship with business dealings in China, the Hunter Biden story, all of that unfolding. We don't know how that's going to end. Those investigations still going on. But nothing surprises me more than what the Chinese are doing, from buying our farmland to setting up what they call a police organization. That's like the KGB under the Cold War had KGB agents here in the United States. We're going to back to that same kind of antagonistic relationship with the Chinese government, similar to what we had in the Cold War against the Soviet Union.
Well, the Republican Study Committee sent a letter to the administration about this, asking for answers. Why are you letting these people in this country, on our soil, enforcing Chinese law? Mm-hmm. They're going after Chinese people who are wanted back home, mm-hmm. and there's allegedly have sent 150,000 of them back already. Mm-hmm. So you know that's coercion.
Yeah.
But how can this possibly be in this country? Do you think they'll be successful with that? Is it?
Well, that again depends on who's sitting in the White House. I'm not surprised that the RSC sent that letter. I'm a member of the Republican Study Committee. It's the largest conservative caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives. And so I applaud them for sending that to the administration. Because here's the problem. One of Congress's most important roles, Bob, is oversight of the administration. The Government Oversight and Reform Committee, which is the pinnacle of oversight on the executive branch. Yeah. Do you know how many oversight hearings they've had since Joe Biden came into office?
No idea.
Zero. Not one single oversight hearing have they had to bring people from the administration in to hold them to account and explain why they're allowing things like you're talking about to happen. You can better believe after November's elections, when Republicans take back the majority in January, and I believe that that's going to happen. I believe that's a foregone conclusion. If the American people, who nearly 80% of them say that we're heading in the wrong direction, if they vote their heart, if they vote their conscience, if they vote their pocketbook, Republicans are going to be back in charge of the legislature come January. And when that happens, you can better believe that rigorous oversight of the executive branch will once again begin.
I hope that's day one.
It will be.
Because this is urgent.
The
situation today in the border and Chinese policemen running around America, I don't even think this president has the constitutional authority to allow these things to happen. So I hope you guys just really go after him.
It will be.
Because the people are depending on it. Something's got to break here. Somebody just said to me recently in this district that something's going to break here. We can't do this any more. So that's pretty bad. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
But it is that bad.
People are concerned.
Yeah.
Americans are concerned. And they have every right to be.
Yeah. We'll just end this with, generally speaking, how would you describe just current events that are going on in the country right now? There's a lot of concern on social aspects, what's going on in schools, the border, drugs. It's everywhere, but what do you think?
Well, you just sort of summarized it right there, Bob. You're exactly right. Approximately 80% of the American people, in just about every poll that you look at, says we're heading in the wrong direction. From what our children are being taught in schools to the wokeness that's permeating our military. Our military's job is to prevent war,
right.
And in the event that we can't prevent it, to win it when we need to. It's not their job to re-indoctrinate politically our children. It's not their job to socially re-engineer our children, but that's what they're doing. The crime, the border, the inflation, everybody is concerned that we're heading in the wrong direction.
Since you brought up the wokeness in the military, I've recently seen a commercial from the military advertising specifically to the woke crowd to join the military. Any thoughts on that?
Stay home. If you're woke, stay home.
Yeah.
Our military is a lethal fighting force.
Right.
And as a commander, when I commanded troops in my Air Force career, I was concerned about one thing and one thing only: building a mission-effective organization that could accomplish our goals, accomplish our mission, and do our part to be the most lethal military on the planet, because that's what's required to ensure our national security. I'm not concerned about how people feel. I'm concerned as a commander about how they perform.
Yeah. Well, I hope that the military takes that obvious, proper military advice and changes things, because this is hurting us big time.
I agree.
It's frightening that this is going on, and I hope that all of that can be just pulled out of the military. There's going to have to be, I believe there's going to have to be some hardcore, tough love by the Congress and by the new administration, hopefully, when we get rid of this.
Well, we are leveling some inquiries with the administration right now about exactly that. Some of the policies of the military service academies and the things that they are doing, like at the Air Force Academy, where they told cadets at the Air Force Academy, you can't refer to your parents as mom and dad anymore. You need to find another pronoun for your parents. You know, that makes no sense to me, undermining the very nuclear traditional family that we have here in America. We're going to the administration asking some very serious questions.
What can Congress do about these things? I mean, I think it's being done intentionally to harm our military, but what can Congress actually do to make some changes?
We can defund the military's ability to implement these woke policies. We can do that. And we can also make it law what the administration can and cannot do in terms of woke type policies. We can do that. We got to have the right numbers in the legislature to be able to get those the important legislation to do that signed into law. But we can do that. 2022 is going to be an important election year this November. 2024 is going to be an even more important one as we put a Republican back in the White House that can work with us to undo much of this wokeness, from our schools to our military.
Well, I think a lot of people will appreciate that, because that's where we have to go.
That's right.
We need some really tough love happening, and it's not happening. I know you can deliver that.
That's right.
Thank you
God
for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
Have a great day, and we'll see you next time around.
Okay.
In the meantime, we have to say goodbye. Today's History Upper Ohio Valley has presented a great program for you. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.